Ah,
Good job.
recording in progress. All right, so good morning. I am
Morning.
interviewing Mr. Phelps here. Thank you for agreeing to be
Mhm.
interviewed for my class. All right, so I'm going
No
to take you
problem.
through each question and yeah. All right, so here we go. Okay, so the first one is about school improvement and accountability. How do you use school-wide assessment data to inform your instructional practices and contribute to overall school improvement?
Well, this is a good question. I think we're both really familiar with because we've talked about it. Um, I usually go through the school processes. Well, I shouldn't put it that way. Um, Two ways. One, I look at the data, we review the data, and we automatically do that with the FAST test. That's our main way of looking at it. And then I like to do this in two ways, and I think this might also answer kind of one of your other questions. One, what the school has us do is we sit down with each student and we do this data chat with them to go over
Yeah,
what their weak areas are and where they can improve. And I think overall that's really helpful because, as you know, we use IXL to kind of help us drive some of the lessons and um, I can always use those Mondays in our school um, as a tool to help them review an area that they're stuck on um, to help improve the scores. But personally, I like to go kind of a little bit away from testing because I look at the data as a whole and I see where the class struggles, and that really drives my lessons more. So if I see that the students are struggling, say, reading informational text, I might try to look for a place to pull in an informational text, build their background knowledge and tie it into what we are learning with another text. So I think there's two ways to kind of do it. One, what the school wants us to do, which is good and I think it works, but then kind of my own way of doing it, which I review the data and I say, hey, here's a pattern. I can tell you the first year we really started doing this, it was poetry that the kids struggled with. So I found ways to incorporate more poetry. And then this past year, I felt it was kind of scattered, but vocabulary was a big one. So I
yeah,
kind of went more with that. So
agreed. Why is poetry always the hardest one for everyone?
yeah, I think it's just the way it's worded and yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like there's no real clear and concise, this is what you should teach for
Mhm.
poetry um, in what we call the Bible, the standards book.
Yeah, I also think the standards are very open with poetry. There's,
Yeah, you can go
especially if you
50
use
directions.
yeah, IXL, there's really only one poetry lesson on there, which isn't super helpful.
I don't even remember what it says in IXL for poetry. Is it just like what's a stanza?
It goes over, it's actually way more complex. It goes over like iambic pentameter and stuff, the things that I feel maybe they don't really need to know what those are. I think they need to know more of how to apply like figurative language, and
Yeah.
some of that's in there, but a lot of it touches on the meter and things like that.
Are there meter questions on the fast for poetry?
That I don't know, because we don't really see the test all the time. But I think
Yeah.
going over it to a degree is good, but going over like trochaic and iambic, I mean, that gets a little confusing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's
Dactylic. Yeah.
yeah,
I
as
know
long as they
I
have basic understanding. I think a lot of the questions are more figurative language driven or
yeah,
meaning
and like
driven.
analyze the poem.
Hmm.
Like what is the speaker saying? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. What role do teachers play in ensuring accountability and continuous improvement within your school system?
All right, let me think about that one for a second. Well, I know what I tend to do is I tend to use the grade book as kind of my go-to. So if a
Same.
student doesn't really do the assignments, I don't like to say that's the best way to do it, but in this day and age, I think you have to,
You have
because
to.
a lot of students just aren't as focused as they should be. And
Yeah.
I think you use the grade book and you use assignments, and that really drives accountability. I also like to, I really like to keep tabs with parents all the time too. And what helped me this year better than all the other years is it was more work on my end, but from the start of the year, I pretty much texted every parent so they knew my number, had my information. And so it was just an easy way to break that barrier with them. So I think between the two, using the grade book and, counting the work, grading the amount of work, um, holding them accountable to do it, and keeping in line with parents, I think that has worked for me.
Okay. And would you say that the parents have been respectful with that form of communication? Did they respect the boundary of time, or were you getting crazy texts late at night?
I think they respected it. Well, I I kind of operate probably different than most people, and I will pick it up and probably answer almost any time as long as it's not super late. But I think for the most part they were respectful about it. But you do get a handful of parents that I hadn't gotten really much pushback, but a lot of times it's you tell them and they say I'll take care of it, and it never gets done. So I think
Mm.
that's something that happens. And they're not saying, oh, so and so is there, they accept what you say if the work isn't done, but sometimes it's not always clear as to their student fixing it, I guess.
And I'm sure that some of those text messages, instead of being about unfinished work, I'm sure that you've reached out to parents about poor classroom behavior. What
Mhm,
is the feedback from parents when you have to reach out about behavior accountability?
mhm. um I'm trying to think on that one. So basically they accept it. They haven't really pushed back. I had a couple times maybe
Good.
parents push back, but I usually reach out whenever we give detentions and they say, "I'm sorry that happened." And they can serve the detention. I'll talk to them. That's usually what the parents say. But again, how much is actually done about it, I don't know, because
Yeah.
I do feel that some of the parents, um, they might be a little bit they're busy with their lives, and I don't know that they're hovering over their kids for everything. I guess
Yeah.
that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, and I know that we talked about using the grade book to also help with accountability.
Mhm,
And we're so lucky to work for a charter school where part of the weight of the grade can be participation. I've worked at other institutions where I was not allowed to, you know, punitively grade, meaning if a student was behaving poorly, I wasn't allowed to take any points out. But part of our school, our expectation at our charter is that you do behave in class because we do assign participation points. And
mhm.
part of participation means behaving respectfully in class. So, would you say that you use those participation points when you need to, or how do you use your participation points?
um yeah, I think I probably do it a little bit differently than yours, but I think your assessment's absolutely correct. You can use them that way. I think mine is more, I'll do certain worksheets that we do together, certain activities in class, like quiz trade
Mm.
as
Oh, yeah.
participation, um, notes as participation, some of the lesser assignments. I always tie it to an assignment, just because I try to be careful and I don't want the parent to go against my judgment. For some teachers that works, but I think if
Mm.
I always tie it to an assignment, then there's something tangible I can use. And then I can say if they turn it in, I mean, I might still take it and mark it late if they didn't do it right, or give them something for it. Maybe I'm a little nicer than most people, but I always like to do something tangible just
Yeah.
so I don't get myself, so it's not just based on my
Hot
judgment.
water. Yeah. Well, and to be fair, the question is how do teachers play a role in accountability? And it's not just teachers. I mean, it's a team of us with accountability. It's, how do teachers hold kids accountable? How does the administration hold students? It's a whole team effort. And,
Mhm,
we're only talking about how teachers hold kids accountable. So, but yeah, it's stuff. I feel like it's a community
mhm.
goal to keep them accountable.
And when I looked at that question too, I thought another good thing was communicating about the students and teachers too, since you say that. So, because some of us might be better with certain kids than other kids, and we learn
Yeah.
strategies from each other. So, I think that's really important too.
To ask help from other teachers who share the student.
Hmm.
Yeah, agreed. I'm just jotting down notes. Yeah,
Oh,
it is nice when you are able to ask another teacher.
hmm.
Kind of like that situation with William this year when
Yeah.
Mr. Harmon reached out to me. Yeah, ask for help from other teachers. I like that. Okay, let's scroll down to the second key element, which is formative and summative assessment data.
Hmm.
How do you use assessment data to adjust your teaching and ensure that all students are progressing toward mastery?
Hmm. Um, that kind of crosses into the first question, I feel. So I feel I kind of answered it. I'm not sure. I mean, I'll think of
I would
something
agree with
else to
that.
add,
We
but
could we could use what tools do you
okay.
use to
Yeah, that's
track and monitor student growth over
Yeah,
time?
I was looking at the second question as well.
Yeah,
So we use IXL a lot. I don't think it's the only tool or the best tool. It works. I know I used it quite a bit throughout the beginning of the year. The kids hate it. By the end of the year, they were burnt out from it, and I got sick of
yeah,
looking at it too.
yeah,
It does help. You can do a lot of things on it. It has AI software. It's good for practice. But I think a lot of this year, um, I moved away from that, and let me see. And I'm trying to think. I Not that I moved away from it. At the end of the year, I didn't use it as much, but
yeah,
I would just keep on practicing the skills. I would try to reintroduce the skills in a new topic just so students can see it with more content. A lot of times I would build um, that actually helped a lot with the honors. It might not work with the younger, or not younger. It might not work with the non-honors kids. I think IXL might work a lot more for them for the basic skills. But with a lot of the honors, what I did is I tried to stack a lot of my skills. For example, when we got to allegory in Animal Farm, a lot of them already knew what the metaphor, similes, and all those were. So I kind of geared my lesson in allegory to say that, hey, it's a combination of all these different kinds of figurative language that you can kind of put together. So I guess I think I'm kind of veering off the question a bit. So I guess I don't know if there's specific tools I use, but besides IXL, but I try to really just focus in on the standards and
yeah.
try to reach out to them in multiple different ways. I'll stack them. I'll use video. I'll use verbal. I guess the multi-sensory. I know there's a question on that.
Yeah.
I try to reach out in many different ways to the students.
Um, I think for myself, I also didn't use IXL too much. I mean, definitely on Mondays, but I don't feel like I got a lot of training, like in-depth training on IXL. And
Mhm,
also, I don't know if the students feel this way, they probably do, but when I log into IXL, I'm overwhelmed by how much there is on IXL. So,
mhm,
but I used Kahoot, I used Book It this year, the quiz.com or the Weight Ground, whatever it's called now. But I also loved the Kagan games. I used a lot of Kagan stuff. But IXL, I just feel like I think our ELA department would like benefit so much from just like a step by step IXL tutorial. I mean, not everyone it needs it. I need
Mhm.
it. But I feel like they're also updating it all the time. So they're like, you can do this if you click here and here. And I'm like, I'm so
Yeah.
lost.
When we first had it, we had somebody kind of go through it with us, and he was actually the math. He was what our zone is for math, but
Mm,
he left, and they never replaced the position. And he was kind of the one that was in charge of putting everybody in IXL, and he kind of gave us a little course, but that
yeah,
was only when we first got it. I don't think we've done it since. Um, but I honestly, I've used Blookit a couple times. I try not to use it too much, so I haven't used it as much. Most of the tools I do are really from myself. I don't use much
yeah,
else. I've used No Red Ink before, and I like that. I know other colleagues have, but I'm like, if they're going to make us do IXL, I'm not going to use this in addition to it and just
yeah.
make it more complicated. I use Study Sync, but obviously they kind of took that away from us, so I kind of adapted it in my own way. So I don't use as many tools as I used to, but I excel and I kind of just use the standards any way I can adapt the standards.
What was the other one? Not Study Sync, but the other one that we used to have.
Common Lit.
Yes, Common Lit. I think we don't have that anymore either.
Well, we can use there is a free version you can use, and I've used it before, but I
Yeah,
think this year I really just moved away from all of it because once they got rid of Study Sync, um, it just made it different.
yeah,
Study Sync was actually really good because you could do the quizzes right on there, and
yeah.
so now it's mostly using Google PowerPoints, Google Forms, using all the
Copy
Google tools.
paste. Yeah. I am definitely a paper and pencil type of teacher, but there's just a wealth of tools that teachers can use, which is cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And then let's move to key element three, standards-based instruction. How do you ensure that your lessons align to state standards and prepare students for like the FAST assessment?
Mhm. I always never sure how to like answer these questions because I feel like I follow the standards, but I've never had somebody stand over me and say like, "Hey, you follow the standards." So I think it's just repetition, really. I try to go back to the same standards and bring them up when they're in a new way. First of all, a lot of the curriculum that we have goes over the same standards, so that's helpful. But there's also standards that might stack on top of each other, like when we went over allegory, that wasn't really a standard, but you had to kind of stack figurative language. So I think it's really just being thorough and showing repetition. But I do feel some of the standards are kind of more open than they should be, especially
Mhm.
in the key elements one. It's very hard to pinpoint. You kind of have to look at whatever we're reading and say, hey, this is the key element I see. That's what I'm going to teach from it, rather than teach every single key element. It's kind of tough, I feel.
There's
So
a lot of key elements.
yeah. So I kind of it's a combination of repetition and pick and choose. Now that I've had the curriculum, I think I'll pick certain ones for things we do and then other ones later. Like allegory, I know is Animal Farm. And I know there's a term that always comes up in one of the figurative language. And maybe I'm not as good with key elements in this, but there's meiosis. It's one of the
Mhm.
terms in the book. It's
Understatement. Yeah.
yeah, it's used in I'll go over it in the beginning, but it's used in Romeo and Juliet. There's a specific spot
Yeah.
when
Mercutio when he gets,
yes, where he gets
yeah.
stabbed. And so I save that specifically for that book when I can because that's used in that situation. So I think it just a lot of it matters on the curriculum and I try to be thorough and repetitive, but I kind of play it by ear too, because some
Yeah.
of them are just too open. Like we might do character analysis here and there with certain characters, and that hits literary elements. But you can't tell me you're going to do character analysis and theme to the same, like doing them all at once. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Um, so, and to be fair with this question, we are given so much freedom
mhm,
at the charter school when it comes to our objective boards. So, my background coming from PCPS, where the state would come through with clipboards, and the first thing that they put their eyes on was the objective board.
mhm,
And if anything was out of place, or if any standard was um, written down wrong, or the vernacular was incorrect, we would get dinged points. And
mhm,
so they really, like, for 4 years, like, drilled it into me that the objective board is like gospel doctrine. And so, like, it's almost like a PTSD now. Before I start my classes, I'm like, what does my objective board say?
mhm,
Is my lesson aligned to the standard that I'm teaching? And so, yeah, and it's different coming
yeah.
to charter school where it's not a big deal, but
And
I mean, it's a big deal, but
yeah, I hear what you're saying. I've heard other people say that, and that's why I'm so glad to work in the school I am,
me
because
too.
I am not a guy who really just follows the standards to a T. I use them and kind of,
It's
I don't want to
intense.
say this in a bad way, but I kind of wing it with education with the standards. Like I definitely follow them, but I wing it. I don't follow them in depth because I feel knowledge, you can learn something, and then if you're following that standard and another standard comes out of it, I think that's a good thing. Like they're
Yeah,
still learning. And I just think just focusing too much on one isn't always, you have one that you focus on, but I feel like knowledge would stem out of it more.
yeah.
So I don't like to be rigid personally.
Yeah, and if you're, I mean, it depends on the standard, of course, but
Mhm,
I always, when I look at the standard that they want me to cover, it's if it's 1.1, um, I know that by the end of the lesson, I need them to understand key elements. So
mhm,
that's where I will start when I'm making sure that my stuff is aligned. What do I want them to be able to do before the bell rings at the end of class? You know,
mhm,
and is it an exit ticket that they show me whether I made it clear what I want them to learn, or is it formative? Is it, like, how do I prove that I aligned correctly? You know?
mhm.
So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's good to have the standards so that it narrows things down, but some of the standards are very broad.
Yes.
So, okay. So that was the third key element. Fourth key element, multisensory instruction. You touched on this a little bit. How do you
Mhm.
incorporate multisensory strategies into your teaching to support student learning?
Yeah, I'm glad this one comes after the standard one because I feel like I do this a lot more than be rigid with the standards. I think it's really important to have multi-sensory. And actually, the last ESOL course really kind of opened my mind up to this a little bit, the one that we took, because it talked a lot. I like to do a lot of Kagan structures. I kind of adapt them, but we'll do what's the one? Quiz trade. I like to get kids to move around the room, quiz trade, get to know people. Sometimes I'll do the anticipation guide, one side of the room, the other side of the room, and in the middle. If you feel strongly, you go to that side. It's a 5. If you feel strongly, it's a 1. I really like those types of structures.
Yeah.
And then I always have visuals. I know you and me both, you and I with the PowerPoints, we're very good
Mhm.
with that. So I like to do that. We do them a little bit differently, but those really work.
Yeah.
I try to show videos. You know me, I make my own videos because these kids don't read, half of
Yeah.
them. So I kind of try to reiterate that. And I do read alouds in class. A lot of times I'll be the one reading. So I really try to cover all of those. And I think that's really, to me, I don't want to say this to undermine the standards, but I really think that that's just as important or more important because
Yeah,
we have so many different learners and the way that they can receive the education is better because I feel even if you're off on a standard and you're not perfect, they can still learn something out of it or learn another standard. I hate to say that. That's why I feel like it's not rigid. I don't want to be too rigid.
yeah,
Obviously, like you said, there's some standards that you have to follow to a T, but some of them, like key elements, are open.
yeah,
So I just feel the multi-sensory really bridges to those standards as best as we can, but it might also get the student to go beyond those standards.
yeah. If it's a teachable moment, take advantage, absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I agree with all of these modes because they are the TikTok generation.
Hmm.
They scroll and scroll and scroll, and if there's a way to incorporate some learning
Yeah.
using kind of the same methodology, I guess is a term that's coming to my brain for that. But the same method that, they do during their recreation, then maybe there's a way that they can learn while at the same time enjoy the learning process.
It's just funny because you reminded me. So I don't know if you saw my Animal Farm thing where I did like these videos of the
They
characters
showed me the
and the
wrapping
kids kept
snowball
saying,
or
yeah, they were traumatized by it. But I could tell you when I told them you have a quiz and it's going to be on the characters and I'll let you write notes beforehand, they were watching the stupid videos to try to learn about them instead of going back to the book. So it
yeah.
was kind of like, hey, they
Yeah.
might have hated them, but it's a win.
It's a win
Yeah.
because they were talking about those videos in my class, and I was like, "What is Mr. Phelps doing? This is a rapping pig? Like, what
Yeah.
is happening?" But they learned and they liked it because by
Yeah.
the end of the year, a lot of them said, "You know, I liked Animal Farm," and I was like, it is 2026, and if we can get these kids to like Animal Farm, like that's a win.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
I do feel like the messages in Animal Farm do transcend time, but it's the feedback for your class was positive for Animal Farm. So
Thanks. That's good to know because they don't show it to me, but they're not going to do that. So,
yeah, they're not going to tell you.
yeah.
Okay. Element number 5 is collaboration with colleagues,
Mhm.
which I know this is hard for us because we almost never have time. But can you describe a time when collaborating with colleagues or stakeholders, parents, I guess, led to meaningful improvement for students?
Um, it's hard with parents, I feel, because they're very, I don't want to say inactive, but they're kind of like, it's your job to teach them. I feel like I
Mm.
get that implication. I don't feel like they say that to me, but they've been respectful, but I feel they're like, oh, he's your problem when he's at school or something like that.
From
They
nine
just
to
don't want to.
five.
Yeah, I don't feel like they say, "Oh, my kid's the best." I don't feel like they say that too much. I don't feel like they don't care, but they're just like, "Oh, I'm sorry you have to deal with that, but do your best with it." I feel like a lot of them are like that. So they care to a degree, but and there are exceptions, but that's what I've noticed in our school. In terms of colleagues, well, I'm always talking to you guys and annoying you guys about stuff,
No.
sending things out. I know I'm kidding, but I feel like the colleagues really help to learn about the students, to share different things. The one thing I wish our school would do more of is, and we're supposed to use these hours that they send us home early all this year, at least this year. It could change next year because our school is different. But they sent us home early on the early dismissals when we were supposed to have like family meetings and things like that to do staff development. I wish they'd do more where we did collaboration with other subjects because we don't have a lot of that at all. For the 4 years I've been here, it's
Yeah.
always been English meets with English and science meets with science. But I can tell you, coming from like my focus lessons this year, one of the things the science teachers told me is we want to improve multiple choice questions. So I made a whole lesson on finding the answers to multiple choice questions that
Yeah.
wasn't just related to English, but science.
Yeah.
And so I really think it helps. And that was through very little collaboration, but I think it really helps to collaborate with other subjects as much as English. And I don't think we
Yeah.
get enough of that.
I would definitely agree with that 100%. If there's a way that we can layer it, um, like with Animal Farm, Russian Revolution, right? I
Mhm,
know that they at some point learn about the Russian Revolution or communism or in government class or there's so many interdisciplinary ways that we can take it. If we could layer the learning like that, it would be great. So I
mhm.
agree with you.
Yeah, we did have one when I first taught 11th grade. You hadn't taught this one, but well, you might have taught it in other schools. But when we read Night, there was a teacher who actually taught the Holocaust class, and they told me and the other person teaching 11th grade to go to that teacher during free time and just kind of get an idea of different things about the Holocaust since they taught it.
Yeah,
And I mean,
that's a good
we
book.
yeah, we didn't spend a whole lot of time. I mean, he gave us some resources, and that teacher's no longer there. But I guess it was a little helpful. But it would have been nice if we met more routinely. But they that was probably the one time they told me to go to other people.
Yeah. I agree with you though. If there's a way that we could incorporate more collaboration, in terms of like pacing.
Hmm.
If you're going to teach the Holocaust and we're going to read something that is about the Holocaust, let's all do it on the same time so that
Right.
it's, the message is really laid in there for them. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think more collaborating would be good. Do you remember when we were talking about Shakespeare? So all of the ELA teachers are teaching Shakespeare at the same time, right?
Hmm.
In my high school, it was the same thing. So all of the 12th grade English teachers would be teaching Shakespeare at the same time, and we had a Shakespeare festival,
Hmm.
and all of us kids dressed up in like Shakespearean garb, and we got to watch some of our fellow students like put on mini Shakespeare plays, and it was just a whole big fun thing, and it made Shakespeare fun, it made it palatable, it brought it to life for us. And
Hmm.
if there was a way that we could collaborate on something like Shakespeare and maybe go see a local play or have like a festival, or like I did the Romeo and Juliet masquerade ball. Is there a way that we could, during all of our English classes have like a mini masquerade ball?
Yeah, I kind of took your idea and ran with it too. I
Yeah.
kind of stole that from you because I like that
That's
one.
okay.
But I had thought about it the year before. I'm like, I want to do something fun. I didn't know how to put it together, and then you were showing me the AI, so we collaborated on that.
Yeah.
And you were like, "This is what I came up with," and then I kind of made my own off of that. So it really that was a lot of fun. So
Wasn't
that
that
was
fun?
really yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And if we do Romeo and Juliet, which we probably are, I would like to, collaborate and do kind of a masquerade ball thing with the other classes. So it's not just one class learning at a time, but all classes coming together. I don't know if we could talk to Adam about that, but I think that would be cool.
Mhm. And a lot of kids really liked making the mask in your class, really
Yes.
detailed. I know one of them,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say names here, but one of them showed me her mask, and she was really proud of it. So, and
Yeah, a
happy.
lot of them were like, Miss, look at my mask. And I was like, you're enjoying your education. What a thought. Like, I
Mhm.
love that. So, yeah. Okay. The last key element is communication with families. Oh no. How do you build and maintain strong relationships with families to support student learning and success?
Well, I kind of reach out at the beginning of the year. Like I said, that's always been helpful. So they have my number. And then I really don't reach out routinely for every student. We just have too many to do that, to be honest with you. But every time the quarter half of the quarter comes, and then the full quarter, we're required to meet out if the students are lower than a 70 to the parents.
Mhm.
And I do that pretty, I don't know the word, religiously, I guess I'm going to say. A lot of teachers, I don't know that everybody does it like they're supposed to, but even if they're on the cusp of a 70, I reach out. And I will tell you, I probably have, depending on my classes, I might have like 50 kids I have to reach out for grades, which is
Mhm.
ridiculous at the half. And then at the full, it's probably less. But I always reach out then. And then that usually trickles to something else, which is good because when I reach out, the parents might say something else that's going on. Oh, my student isn't doing so great with this. And I'm like, okay, well, I can help that student with this. So I kind of hate to say it. I don't really talk to every parent up front all the time, but a lot of times having those chats about grades leads to a lot of other things. And I've learned to build a better relationship with kids knowing I'm talking to their parents.
Yeah.
um, and sometimes it does feel negative because some of the students will hold it against you. I've had that too.
Yeah.
um, but the parents are usually happy I reach out, but a lot of times some kids are just not very nice about it. But oh well, that's my job. I tell them, hey, it's my
Yeah.
job. So
It's tough love. I do this
yeah.
because I love you.
Mhm.
Yeah. And, a teenager, it's hard for them to see that. But yeah, I want them to be successful just like you do. And sometimes that requires a call home. Um,
Mhm.
and I feel like I don't know if you would agree with this, but for me, it's almost been 50-50. Like 50% of the time when I communicate with families, parents, they're really receptive and they're like, okay, thank you for letting me know. Like they're happy and grateful that I've reached out and that I have open communication with them. But also 50% of the time, I feel like I've been met with a lot of defensiveness
Mhm.
and pushback, or really kind of the apathetic, like we were talking about earlier, that
Mhm.
apathy from them. They're from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's on you guys. So I feel like it's been really half and half for me.
Yeah, I haven't gotten too much pushback. I don't know how I avoid that. I know I've talked, but I do get a lot of no responses at all. So if that counts as part of that 50%, then throw them in there because some parents just don't seem to respond at all.
Like
And
indifferent.
yeah, indifferent. So I get a lot of that. It's probably, this year I think it was better. I don't know what I did this year. Probably, I don't know, 60-40, 60 who cared, 40 maybe apathetic. But I think it probably got better than that as the end of the year approached
Yeah.
because then the parents realize, oh, you are here to help them. So,
Well, and for those who will be watching this interview, they may have a question about what you're talking about earlier. We are required to send a notice
mhm.
to parents when students have, what is it, like a 60 or a lower?
Yeah, I think it's
Uh,
lower than 70.
yeah, and I think we send that notice out 2 weeks before grades are due or something. And
So I think it's at the midpoint and then at the 2 week point. Yeah.
yeah. And so we are required to do that, you and I. And so I
Mhm.
know that when I send those notices out about a student who is falling below where they need to be, I have had responses from families that said,